So the goal of this video is to show you how you can go from a blank, empty Tinkercad document to a final, fully 3D modeled design that looks like something you had pictured in your head or sketched out on a piece of paper. Right? So there's lots of little tips and tricks along the way, and the goal is to just kind of follow along with this video and see if it makes sense step by step. So let's start with saying I wanted to make something like a truck, right? So here's an example of a truck I have in my mind. You could have sketched this out on a piece of paper, have, like I have right here, a picture of something. But as you can see, when you're working within Tinkercad, it's all about breaking down the object into simple shapes. So when I'm looking at this truck, it is very rectangular across all of the body. There's some cylinders down here on the wheels. There's kind of a trapezoid up here on the top that's made up of a couple different shapes. But that's what we're looking at, a bunch of shapes that we can kind of stack together in order to make a holistic overall shape. So let's start at the basics, right? I want to kind of make the overall big rectangular portion of it. So over here on the right side, we have different shapes. I'm in the basic shapes right now that you can use to make this. So if you want to do something, you simply scroll over it and you can click and drag and drop it right onto here. All right. Now, before we get too far into this, you want to check a couple quick things. Number one of the super important ones if you're going to be doing this and try to 3D print it is we want to make sure that the actual measurements are in a unit of measurement that we use here in America, which is inches. So mine, it already is, but if you just open up, the default is not that. So you might need to go down to settings and you might need to make sure that it's on imperial, not metric. If it is on metric, click on imperial. Hit make default. That way for the future it will always be that way and you'll be good to go. So that's the first thing. Another thing I like to do, you don't have to do this, but I find it to be easier, is there's a tool right here called the ruler tool. If you click, you can drag this anywhere, but for me I like to put it in the corner. All right. What that does is whenever you click on your actual object, it will give you a series of measurements. So you see I have a height, a width, and a length all right there. And in green over here, it tells you how far it is from where you place the ruler. So the added advantage of that is now when you have this clicked, you see all these, they're called nodes. There are white and black rectangles. If you click on any one of those, it will allow you to modify the shape. So the corner white ones will allow you to modify 2 at a time. The black ones just let you change 1. But the reason why I like the ruler tool is instead of having to like drag and play with it this way, you can simply just end up typing or clicking in on the actual number and then change it to whatever you want it to be by clicking on the keyboard. So in this case, if I want it to be 4x2, I can just enter that straight in right there and I'm good to go. All right. So those are really important things with the ruler tool that allows you to do. It allows you to be able to see the measurements all the time, click on them and change them to what you want. Now you might have noticed I'm moving the camera around. So if you are using a computer like I am, I have a mouse hooked up to this right now, and there's a couple different things you can do, right? If you left click, it'll just draw a red box. Anything that you draw a box around, it'll select it. If you right click, I can change the camera angle. And my personal favorite, in order to pan around the document, you click in the scrolly wheel and that allows you to move left, right, up, and down. Or you can just use the scrolly wheel to zoom in. So those are all ways to control it. You can also use some of these commands over here to change zooming in, zooming out, and changing the camera angle. But using the mouse and right-clicking and holding in the scrolling wheel are going to be some of the most useful things. A lot of Tinkercad is getting at the right view to get it to be set up for success. So that's some of the basics. Now, let's say I wanted to modify this a little bit because, you know, the truck was very angular, but there's some slight curves to it, right? So every shape, when you click on it, some options appear right here, right? They might not all show if you click on this little arrow. It makes things kind of simplified or expand. But either way, you can change the color. So if I wanted my truck to be blue, I can change it to be blue. This is going to make something so that it's cut out, so I don't want to do that right now. I'll explain that in a bit. But you can see in blue here, I can change that. But if I click on this arrow and expand it, there's even more. So one of the ones I want to do, I don't really want to change the width or the length or all that. I already did that. But I can click on radius, and you can see it rounds this just a little bit. So I don't want to go crazy, but I'm going to round that a little bit. And what you'll see is the step simply includes like the amount of detail that it actually does of that step. So for me, I'll increase that to be pretty high. And like I said, just a little bit of roundness to my body of my truck. So boom, there it is. That's step one. Now, obviously, this does not look like a truck yet. We have to continue to build on this to make it look better. So next thing I want to show you is let's add another shape. So if I want to build the cab, I could try to find a trapezoid, see if that's one of the basic shapes, or I could make it out of multiple. I'm going to make mine out of multiple. So I'm going to start with another box, and if you click and drag again, do you see right now, if I put it over here on the white part of it, it's going down. That's called the work plane. But if I scroll on top of my object, do you see how in orange it's previewing where it's going to go? You can place objects on top of something else, and that can be really useful here for us overall. So now if I have that red part on top of here, I know it's perfectly touching this. There's no space in between those two sections right there. All right, so what I want to do is I want to place this where I think the cab of the truck would go. If I click on the blue one, I know this was 2 inches across. So I want this to be 2 inches across. So if I click on this, change it to be 2. All right, so far so good. I'm going to move the camera a little bit, make sure it's locked in right there. Once again, I can add some radius so it's a little bit round. I could change the color to be the same blue. And that looks pretty good. It kind of looks like it's floating. Here's another trick I did not teach you yet. Instead of just clicking on these black or white squares, do you see how there's a cone? Depending on where you're looking at it, it can either appear above it or below the object, but whether it's above or below, if you click on it, that will allow you to move this up or down. So I could click that down, and now it will blend into that side a little bit better, and I could even pop it up a little bit again so it's the same height that it was before. So there we go. That's some of the cab. I can move it back maybe a little bit. You can also use the keyboard and hit the arrows to move things forward or back. But what I want to do now is kind of make the windshield. So I'm going to should I use the green or the blue? Let's use this blue one right here. All right. So once again, I'm placing it on top of here. That's sick. But now it's not rotated the right way. So look with me here. I'm zooming in. Do you see there's an arrow right here? There's an arrow right here. And the last one's hard to see from this angle, but there's also one right here. Each one of those is going to rotate it in a different plane, either the X, Y, or the Z plane. So in this case, you can see if I click on that arrow and drag the mouse, I will rotate this. All right, so that's a really useful thing. In this case, I don't want to rotate it that way. That's not helpful. I'd want to click on this one down here, and you can see I can rotate it down. So that is the beginning of what looks like my windshield. Be careful rotating. Do you guys see my mouse is currently inside this circle, and see how it's like snapping to like these big chunks of measurements? If you move the mouse to the outside, it can go to whatever custom measurement you want it to be. So make sure whether you want it to be customized or not, you can move that to go wherever you want. And then I can start to make this look like a windshield. I feel like most windshields are a little bit steeper. And try to have it go over here. Now, here's another quick little tip, all right? I want this windshield to kind of go towards the edge, but I don't like how right now it's kind of like snapping, and this one it's kind of off-centered, and if I try to click, it's just not fitting very well, right? So here is a tip. Go down to where it says snap grid. Sometimes it's really helpful to have things snap into place so you know everything lines up. Sometimes it just doesn't allow things to align very well. So I want to show you what happens when you turn that off. If I turn that off, I can now drag this and put it exactly where I think it's going to look best, where it's close to the edge, but it's not quite sticking out. All right? So there I think this edge looks good. Maybe this one I could move a little bit more, but now we're cooking. All right? It is sticking through the top. So I talked about all these black or white squares. There is always going to be one that's at the top that just controls the height. That's all of it. So I want it to kind of stick through, but not the whole way through the top. And there, once again, I got myself a nice windshield. Sweet. So next thing, really important thing that I want to show you. You can add shapes together like this to make something. You can also add shapes to cut away parts. So let's say I wanted to make this like any truck where you can't see from this angle, but it's got a bed of a truck, right? It's hollowed out with just walls. So in order to do that, there are shapes that are shaded like this. All right, you could click on one of these two, or you can click on any shape and turn it into what says hole to make it into a shaded object. So I want you guys to click on the box, all right, and click on the shaded box. For now, I'm going to hide all these extra options to get them out of the way, move the camera so I can see pretty well, and I would want to make this look like a bed of a truck. So once again, think of your initial sketch, think how you could do it, and basically it should make it so that there's like really thin walls all the way around this. So if I slide that down into it and I drag this so it's pretty close to this corner, and drag this so that it's pretty close to this corner, all right, now we are doing a really good job. It's hard to tell how far down it is. Like, you can make sure that it's not sticking the whole way through by bringing it down and then lifting it up a little bit. But that's going to be the basics of what I want it to be so that it cuts through this truck. But it's not cutting. So here is what I want to do. First, I'm going to get nitpicky. I'm going to add some radius so it looks rounded just like everything else. But here is the magic trick to remove parts of an object so it just doesn't look like this shaded thing, but actually cuts it out. Click on the shaded object, and then there's two different ways you could do this actually. You could either click and then hold in shift and click on the thing you want it to cut into. So in this case, I selected on the shaded rectangle and on this big blue rectangle by holding in shift on that second click. Or you could just click with the right click of the mouse and drag a red box around the things that you want to select, which once again is the shaded object and the solid object you want it to cut into. In this case, do you guys see over here where it says shapes, it says 2. I know I have both of those objects selected and only those 2. You could select more than that, but I only want those 2 selected right now. So once I have that, here is the magic button. You see this command right here? There's a square and a circle overlapping. That is the group button. That is going to do the cutting. So here we go, group. Wait for it to load for a little bit, and ta-da, there is my hollowed out bed of my truck that I have that will function. All right, so that is a tip to help make sure that you can cut into things, and that can make some really complex shapes as well. You can also use the group command to group together solids. So right now these are 2 independent things, but if I wanted to, I could group them. It'll do a thing where it's going to merge them. All right, so now that they act as one independent thing, whether it's moving it or resizing it. So that can be helpful too. So just keep an eye out and understand that that can be helpful if you're trying to constrict or make things act together. That can be a helpful thing to do. Okay, so a couple other small things here. I'm actually going to want to ungroup this. If I looked really closely, and I'm just being real nitpicky here, but if I had to guess, this is not a perfectly centered hole, or even if it is, I want to double check. So I'm going to ungroup it so it goes back to a shaded thing. And another magical tool here is called the Align tool. If you click on this, a bunch of dots will appear. All right, so there'll be 9 total. What that will do is between the objects that you have selected, which in this case is the shaded object and the straight part, it will move them so that they align either perfectly in the center in this case with this dot, all the way to the left with this one, all the way to the right. Or in the case of these 3, all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom, or right in the middle. Or in the case of these 3, center from the back of the truck all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So for me, what I would want to do is I would click on this one, and it probably won't look like much changes. It doesn't, but do you see how that's grayed out now? That means it's perfectly centered now. So that is exactly what I want it to do. If I click on this, it's going to mess it up, but I just want to show you it's going to center this perfectly centered to the rest of it, or in this case, move it all the way over there. So it's perfectly touching the edge of it right there. So just know this can be really helpful if you're trying to get things to line up perfectly. Now in this case, I actually want to undo those last 2 because they messed it up. But now I know it's perfectly in the center, regroup it. So there's that. Next thing, let's add some wheels. We're starting to look kind of like a truck. Obviously it's pretty elementary, but we're just teaching the basics here. We could make some wheels, right? So here I could plop on a cylinder. I could make the side so it's super round. I could shrink it in so it's skinnier. I could add some bevels so it's rounded over a little bit, change the color to black. But what I really want to do here, instead of just doing that, I'm going to delete that. I want to show you guys there's more than just basic shapes here. Well, some of my favorite things to do in Tinkercad are in the shape generator. There's all sorts of amazing things in here. And now my computer's a little slow, so it's not going to show them. But there's a ton of things in here. So they're kind of randomly assorted. But there is so many good things. And why I say that is many of them, when you click on them, they have so many options that you can modify. So in this case, like I can do something as simple as changing the height of something, but if I'm making this as a gear, I could also change it so that how many teeth there are. So instead of having 8 teeth, I could give it a second to load, and then you'll see that all of a sudden, poof, there'll be 14 teeth. So it can make some super complex things, or in our case, you'll see there's literally like a tire here. So I can pop this tire on, and look, this is way fancier than what I had before. And I can change the rim style if I want to do something different. Oh my gosh, I don't like that. I can change how it's going to connect to it. I can change individual parts of the tire if I want it to be fatter or less. It completely customizes all of it. So just keep in mind, there's some really fun stuff to play with over here that you can do. For now, I'm just going to stick with this and shrink it down to make it more usable. So another tip here, if you want to resize something, once again, I told you can click on these white or black parts of it. I'm going to click on the white thing, but do you guys see how I can kind of smush or stretch the tire? I don't want to do that. So if you're on the computer, hold in shift as you're doing this, and you see how that's changing the size but keeping it proportionate. That is a super helpful thing to make sure you don't accidentally mess something up. And now I have a much tinier little tire right here that I can put over on the side of the truck. So another tip, another trick here, all right? Duplicating something. If you have something selected, like this tire, sorry, I'm going to change the color, it's bugging me. Like this tire right here, if you want to make another copy of that, you put in the time to change the rim type and change the size of it, and you don't want to have to click over here and add another one like that, the duplication tool is going to be your friend. So up here, there's these post-it notes. What you're going to want to do is use it as a duplication tool. So I'm going to click on it and hit the post-it notes, duplicate. Now, it doesn't really look like much happened, but the reason for that is it places the new copy of it right on top of the old version. So once again, if I hit duplicate, and it is glitching a little bit, but if I do that, it will create another copy, and it's not going to show you that new copy until you click and drag the other one off. All right, so now I have a second tire. Another tip, all right, do you guys see how I have this? It's probably going to go somewhere right about here. But if you hold in the shift button as you're clicking, it will restrict the movement so that it can only go either on the X plane or on the Y plane. So this will perfectly put it up against the side of the truck, just like the first one right there. Now, another cool thing about the duplicate tool is you can do it on more than one object. So if I were to hold in shift and click on both of those, and then click on this, I can duplicate it and slide them straight across. Once again, I'm holding in the shift key, and now I have tires on all four sides just like that, right? So the duplicate tool, holding in the shift tool to resize things, keeping them in proportion, and to restrict the plane can be super, super helpful as well. All right, so lots of amazing things that you can do to take a simple program like Tinkercad that looks kind of elementary, but you can really make some precise things in it. So this is just an example of making a basic truck, but you can think through something, have any shape in your mind, and create it. Last bonus round of just quick couple things I just want to show you. Number one, all right, when you have an object and you start to rotate it and you get all these crazy things, when you go to resize it, do you see how it's getting all deformed and kind of weird like this? All right, a way to prevent that from happening, all right, is to go up here and click on the shape work plane. If you ended up rotating something but you want to change it but not get it all goopy and weird like that, if you click on that, it'll put this green work plane, and now when I go to resize it, you can see it's going to just change it like it was normally on the work plane. So I can still mess with the X and the Y, but it's not making both of them weird at the same time. So that's, again, that was this button right here. So that's one of the things you can do. Another thing you can do is if you're trying to make sure you're building stuff and you want everything to be perfectly on this work plane, this blue thing right here, you're going to click on the drop to work plane and boom, it'll put whatever you have selected, whether it's multiple things or just that one, down on the work plane. And final tool right here. Let's say I was horrible at everything I just said and it's just a headache. If you want to get a little elementary with it, you can use the sketch tool. What this does, if you drag it down, it'll change the camera angle so we're looking straight down below it. And basically, wherever I click here, all right, I can make a two-dimensional object here. And for now, I'm just going to go really quick. And now you can see this 2D object. I could modify this. I could try to change some of these points. You can see I can modify it a little bit. I could add some curve to it so that it's going to, or delete things like I did there. But when you're making things in here, I can go to this one and click and drag. It makes things round. But when you're using this, when you hit finish sketch, you'll see it creates that as a three-dimensional object. So that can be a really helpful thing to do. And you can even go back and edit it. If you're trying to make something and it's kind of able to be 2D, that can really help make it look really good. And there's all kinds of advice here for showing you how to use it and make some more complicated things. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the final really helpful building techniques that you can use to make something look good. All right, so there's even more we could get into, but for now, that should get you pretty far into being able to make something that's both the right measurements so that it all checks out. So this would actually fit on a 3D printer. Make it so that it's actually fitting together in a tight fit and aligned so that things aren't slightly off and actually looks good. So hopefully you found that helpful overall.